Good evening, everybody. It's lovely to see you. I'm Tessa Warburg of the Thorn Press and the publisher of The Master's Tale by Anne Victoria Roberts. You may like to know how all this came about because it's quite an interesting story. Many of you will already know that Anne is a best-selling author whose first book, Louisa Elliott, came out in 1989. Her agent was able to auction it in the States, and she was eventually offered an advance of $1 million, which was a lot then. And, you know, it may not sound as much now, but it was a huge amount then, and it's still a very large amount, isn't it? The book sold well, and Anne was even featured on page 3 of The Sun. But I hasten to say, not without her clothes on. And once the book, Anne published 3 more novels after Louisa Elliott, and then she did not write for a short time, but now she's back to writing fiction. And once the book was finished, Anne sent it off to her agent, who's Craddock King, a very well-known agent, who would have expected to sell her book just like that, and he offered it around the major publishers in London, and then even some of the smaller ones, but they all turned it down. As it happens, I know Anne, and I read her book, and I was very keen to publish it. So the Thorn Press is absolutely delighted to be publishing this book. I believe it will do extremely well, and that the mainstream publishers don't always know what the reading public wants, and sometimes the small presses can fill the gap. And so with that, I'll hand you over to Anne and let her tell you all about her book.
Thank you very much indeed, Tessa. Thank you. And hello everybody, it's really, really good to see you all here tonight. I'm really glad that you could come here tonight to help me celebrate the launch of The Master's Tale. And I'd like to tell you a little bit about how it all came about. 3 years ago, I was working on something completely different, a novel about the Civil War, the English Civil War. The research was done, and I was just about to start writing when Captain Smith put in an appearance, and he refused to go away. I've never been a Titanic buff. To be honest, married to a man who went away to sea for a living, I've always preferred not to dwell on maritime disasters. But back in 2008, after a routine visit to the pilot's office in Southampton, my husband Peter came home with an extraordinary tale about Captain Smith and the Titanic. I felt the need to take up the case for Captain Smith, set the record straight. If I'd been a biographer, then I'd have written a biography. But as I'm a writer who can't help putting words into my characters' mouths, it had to be a novel.